Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here, and today we're going to be heading to Six Flags Magic Mountain for their 20th roller coaster, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, and of course our full in-depth review. Wonder Woman Flight of Courage is an RMC Raptor single rail coaster, and believe it or not, it is the tallest as well as longest single rail coaster in the world, at least at the time of its opening on July 16th, 2022. This ride, of course, is located at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. And it is the park's 20th, which is a record-breaking feat. No park in the world, at least at the time of opening, has 20 roller coasters in one park. Well, speaking of those records we talked about just a little bit earlier on, let's head over to that top height, which is 131 feet. Which will get you going up to a speed of 58 miles an hour. And in terms of length, this one's quite a long one at 3,300 feet in total. While you're traversing that length of track, you'll encounter 3 different inversions, including a Raven dive, a 0G stall, and a 0G roll. Now that we've got the stats out of the way, let's figure out how to get there. So once you enter into Six Flags Magic Mountain proper, take a quick right towards the main entrance plaza and the fountains. Take a right there, go past Full Throttle, all of Bugs Bunny World, Goliath, and even Drop of Doom before you encounter the brand new revamped DC Universe section of the park. From this point, you're going to go underneath that entrance sign and keep heading all the way to the back of that area before turning left into the entry plaza. It's not hard to spot from that point, I can tell you for sure. And then you're welcome to hop in line. In front of the main queue space, there is this beautiful archway with an amazing looking sign, one of the best in the park, I would argue, before you encounter some switchbacks on the exterior of the main station and queue building, which is themed to an embassy to the sovereign city-state of Themyscira. After traversing the switchbacks outside, you'll soon head through the doors into the embassy itself, where you'll encounter some more switchbacks from within, this time with some lovely theming kind of surrounding you, whether it's weapons on the wall, details about Greek gods and goddesses, or even some really cool light-up pillar portions that round out this AC-filled room. From this point, it might get a little bit confusing as you head down a hallway to a locker portion. And just as a heads up, if you do have anything more than a wallet or keys, or of course your phone, you're gonna need to pay $1 for a locker rental right there. After your locker rental is complete, you'll head through another hallway and up a staircase into the main station itself. From this point, you'll be able to board those continuously moving trains of 12 cars each and get ready for a wild flight. As you quickly take your seat on these RMC Raptor trains, you'll find yourself straddling this single rail track by sitting down almost like you're riding a horse. It is a little weird to get used to, I can't lie, but as soon as you're sat down, this is the perfect moment to unzip those pouches in front of you and of course put your loose articles like your phone or wallet or keys into the pouch provided. Once you zip that back up, you'll get to experience this restraint, which is a very interesting take on the restraint system itself. Now, of course, if you've been on rides like Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, Railblazer at California's Great America, or of course, Jersey Devil Coaster over at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, you know what this feels like well. But if you don't, the main restraint comes from over your head, and the main portion touching your body will be 2 nylon covered seatbelt-like materials right on your collarbones. And I will admit, this can get a little tight, especially with some of the airtime moments on the ride later on. Connected to this, of course, is a full lap bar, and this even has a little protrusion, acting realistically as a handlebar for you to hold on to. But with that, I've already lost my time in the station as you're already heading out with that continuously moving station, and I can definitely tell you, loading and unloading on this ride is done in a flash. So with that, let's be courageous. Wonder Woman Flight of Courage starts with a quick right-handed turn out of the station. Soon, you'll end up going upward this 131-foot tall lift hill, and I gotta say, it is one of the quickest lift hills, at least at Six Flags Magic Mountain. You'll get up there in record time, getting a beautiful view of Tatsu, Riddler's Revenge, and so much more at the park. But seriously, before you know it, you'll be dropping down that 87-degree drop all the way towards the ground. If you're in the front, this drop isn't the most exciting element, but if you're in the back, you start getting yanked over this drop before you even crest the lift hill. This is one of the most insane airtime moments I've experienced on a coaster, especially all the way in the back in row 12. Following this, you'll hit your first valley very close to the ground before rocketing up all the way to the top of the first inversion on this roller coaster, a Raven Dive. Now, while most people would like to think of this element as just a dive loop like its neighbor's Riddler's Revenge, well, imagine a dive loop, but you have an airtime moment before you twist. At the very top of this element, you'll get some crazy airtime, especially towards the front, as well as some really cool lateral motions before diving upside down towards the ground. Now in the back, this element, while tame on the airtime, actually gives a little bit of hang time as you dangle upside down before being pulled all the way to the ground. Now that's just something I want to mention now because it is a common theme on this roller coaster. The back and the front being so far away from each other realistically makes it a completely different experience from row to row. Coming out of this first inversion though, you'll hit some positive G's, especially towards the front, and you'll be greeted with some lateral forces as you bend to the right before being vaulted into one of the standout moments of this roller coaster, this camelback airtime hill. It is phenomenal in every single row. If you're up front, you'll just experience that insane airtime going up. Of course, in the back, you'll get pulled over and just have sustained airtime all the way down. And in the middle, it gives you some awesome floater airtime, just lifting you out of a seat in the most pleasant way possible and maybe giving you a little bit of butterflies. This is definitely one of my favorite moments of the ride, although I wouldn't say it's my absolute favorite, but it's definitely a standout moment for sure. Following this, you'll end up doing the same type of motion, except this time you're going to be twisting upside down into a 0G stall. These elements are incredible, and I gotta say, it's insane to think that Magic Mountain has so many roller coasters with this element. And I can't lie, I do feel spoiled, as this type of inversion is easily one of my favorites. While you're dangling upside down quite high in the air, you'll get some incredible hang time, and as you exit out of this inversion, don't be surprised with some cool lateral motions as you flip back to right side up. Immediately following this, literally in the blink of an eye, you end up getting catapulted up to the top of what we like to call the crow's nest, which is one of the main turnaround sections of the ride, and it's a beautiful photo point, especially if you're standing in DC Universe, as it acts as one of the main turnarounds on this roller coaster. And I gotta say, entering this turn, you'd think, oh, it's just going into a turn. Well, if you're towards the front, it's crazy. You get this weird pop of sideways airtime pushing you to the side like crazy. You could see it in my rider cam footage right here. You could definitely tell I was caught off guard, especially being in the front row. Whereas in the back, this moment's kind of tamed down to say the least. But from this point, you'll pull a little bit of positive G-forces, spinning your way around back towards the other end of the coaster and dropping off on a really solid airtime moment, especially if you're towards the back. Now, as you're heading back to the Metropolis area of the park, you'll encounter the ride's third inversion, a 0G roll. This is fantastic wherever you're sitting, but I will say, towards the back, because of how long the train is and how it feels like it's pulling constantly, this is one of my favorite 0G rolls ever. It truly gives that weird and wacky experience, like how it would feel floating around in space, but with a little bit of extra kick at the very end. Soon after you finish the third and final inversion on the ride, you'll get pushed up and get some pretty great airtime, especially if you're towards the front as you hit the mid-course brake run. This is the perfect breather as it gives you about 3 seconds to calm down and be like, whoa, that first half was crazy. And I'm not kidding when I say 3 seconds, as you'll be put into that second half before you even know it. Of course, like most of the drops on this roller coaster, you'll get some great airtime coming out of the mid-course brake run, especially if you're in the back. But this immediately gives you some lateral forces as you twist toward the left in a 180-degree turn, heading back to where you started this entire experience. In the middle of this high bank turn, though, there's an amazing hand chopper. So if you've got your hands up in the air, it might seem like you might hit a support or two. Don't worry, you won't, but it might freak you out just a little bit. Following this, though, is the beginning of the end, the finale. Multiple airtime moments in a row. As you bank to about 45 degrees to your left in this weird kind of outer banked airtime moment, you'll get a good dosage of negative G-forces before experiencing it tilting to the right, adding some cool lateral motion in there. Then comes one of the most understated moments on the ride you would think, with a mini bunny hop hill, but man, it's one of the most powerful moments of airtime on the entire coaster, no matter where you're sitting. It always caught me off guard. Now from this point, you'll get kind of twisted toward the right in a weird type of wave turn element that gives you some fantastic lateral forces, as well as a little bit of a floating sensation, before doing something similar towards the left, except going beyond 90 degrees, almost in an inversion, as you cross over that main plaza and head into the final brake run. I will say this final moment of the roller coaster kind of feels like a cutback inversion. If you don't know what that is, imagine twisting into a corkscrew before getting almost upside down and twisting back, mirroring that original corkscrew moment. As you glide into the brakes, you'll eventually turn left back into the station. Your restraint will automatically pop up. Make sure to unzip that pouch and grab all your belongings, and then head down the stairway, get your stuff from the locker, and walk out that exit. Well, I guess you were courageous enough, because you took on Wonder Woman Flight of Courage with little to no problems. Oh man, I'm not gonna lie to you, I am currently recording this at 2 a.m. Technically the day after I was lucky enough to be able to attend Six Flags Magic Mountain's media event and grand opening ceremony for this wonderful roller coaster. And while I might be going on nearly 24 hours of not sleeping, I literally could not fathom sleeping without talking about this ride. Now, I got to experience this ride quite a lot considering I was there for the media day. I did end up losing count of how many rides I had in total, but at the absolute minimum, I would say it was somewhere in the range of 18 or 19 rides. So I did get quite a great feel, at least in my opinion, for how this thing functions. This being Magic Mountain's 20th roller coaster, it had to be something monumental. And I gotta be honest, this fits that bill extremely well, and may have pushed itself up quite high into my rankings at the park. But before we get into all of that, let's cover some stuff that I didn't cover while we were riding. This thing has incredible hand choppers all over the place. I know I only mentioned one or two of them, but they are literally all over the place on this ride, including that turnaround above DC Universe. Coming out of the first inversion, that zero G roll, all of these moments have fantastic hand and head choppers. You're just constantly feeling like you're dodging all the supports. It's so cool. Something I do want to mention though, if you want the smoothest ride possible, not saying this ride isn't smooth or anything, there's just a little bit of a playful shuffle is how I would describe it, back and forth. But if you want to negate that as much as possible, the back is probably the way to go, where the front might be a little bit more shuffle prone. But I will say the front and back are quite intense rides. If you want the least intense experience overall, especially if you're unsure of how you'll do on the ride, sitting somewhere between row 4 and 8 will probably give you the most graceful seating position. Any row number higher or lower than that, well, you're gonna be in for quite the wild ride. Something I do want to say though is that this ride really excels in lateral forces, which I was not expecting at all, and I really enjoy that. More coasters should focus on laterals. I feel like that's something that no rides really pinpoint anymore. But in addition to that, the hang time is there, the air time is there, and of course, some of those positive G's are definitely there as well. Every single element on this ride offered a different sensation to your body, and I absolutely adored that variation. Yes, there were multiple airtime moments, but they were all different and unique in their own way. And of course, yes, there are multiple moments where you're hanging upside down and getting amazing hang time, but it's different. As well as every single row feels different. You can legitimately have 12 different experiences all together and have a completely different thought process from one row to the next. With that said though, this ride can be either graceful and just absolute fun or ridiculously intense and ready to blow your socks off. I'm sure after saying something like that, a lot of you are curious if it's as intense as something like Wonder Woman at Fiesta, Texas. And I will say that version of the RMC Raptor model is more intense overall, whereas Wonder Woman Flight of Courage is a better overall crowd pleaser. More people will definitely be able to ride this, and I will say it's not as scary as you would think. One great thing about this roller coaster is how long it is. It feels like it goes on forever. When they say it's a 2-minute long ride cycle, I mean, even without including the lift, it is definitely closer to 1.5 minutes. I gotta say, that's pretty rare on a lot of roller coasters. So it made this ride feel like more of a complete coaster experience. And when you have a ride that lasts that long and is as re-rideable as this, it made it pretty easy to ride it close to 20 times. Before we head into my ratings overall though, let's head over to my favorite and least favorite. I gotta say, this is ridiculously tough to try and choose a favorite and least favorite row. Out of the 12 rows, I can definitely say my favorites for sure. I can't pick one still. Include the first 2 rows as well as the last 2 rows. And my least favorite, as I prefer a more intense ride, are rows 5 and 6. Moving on to favorite and least favorite moments of the ride, I gotta say that drop in the back row is phenomenal. That 0G roll is amazing as well. I mean, the camelback hill is awesome too. Maybe the 0G roll. I love pretty much every single moment on the ride. If I had to say a least favorite moment though, outside of the mid-course brake run, I would definitely say it's those first 2 airtime hills heading toward the brakes. Alrighty, it is rating time. If you have not seen one of these videos before within this series, of course, make sure to go check out all of them, especially from our Magic Mountain playlist. But I have an unorthodox rating system. First, I'll give out a ski slope rating, pretty much recommending how experienced of a coaster rider you should be before taking on Flight of Courage, a star rating for fun and intensity, and of course, an overall score out of 10. This ride is probably the hardest thing I've ever tried to rate. Because of the different experiences offered between each row, it feels almost like a different roller coaster sometimes. Thankfully though, the easy one to pick out of the hat is that this is definitely for experienced riders. It's not near the most intense ride at the park. I would definitely say rides like Tatsu, X2, even Twisted Colossus are more intense than this ride. But if you can take on something like Batman, Riddler's Revenge, or even Full Throttle, you should be okay on this ride. Moving on to the star ratings though, this is definitely a 4 stars for intensity. Not the most intense thing on the planet, but definitely intense enough to get your blood pumping. And for fun, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty tough. Some of my rides I would definitely say were 4 stars, but some were even 5. So take that as you will as we head into the overall score out of 10. And this is where I struggle also. Why not? This thing's a 10 out of 10. It is so much fun. Alright, I'm curious to see what you guys think. Make sure to comment down below. Do you love this thing just as much as I do? Or do you disagree with me? Let me know down in the comments. Of course, while you're down there, make sure to go check out the description. I've got tons of links down there to my different social media platforms if you'd like some more Parks Bros content. Speaking of which, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. We've got so many videos coming in the near future. But with all that said, I wanted to say thank you so much for watching. This review was kind of a struggle to make because there is just so many thoughts going through my mind at this point. But one thing definitely rings true about this roller coaster. It is fantastic, at least to me. But of course, until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.